This is another tool that we've been using a lot of. This is a dual action sander. This is a great tool for finessing a foam project, okay? This gentleman has a partial foot, very short partial foot amputation, so we blocked it out with a foam block and a more dense foam on the plantar surface so that you have something firm to anchor the plastic to. This device is going to be actually molded plastic, comes right around and right up over the foot. So we had to actually reduce the dimension of the foot a little bit to accommodate for the thickness of the plastic that's going to go over it. And the way you finish it is with a dual action sander. You can really finesse this. If you look, see the roughness in here? Watch. See how nice and smooth that makes it? Because now when we mold the plastic over this, you can okay. This is actually from Ortho Body. Notice the technique. You don't want to stay here in one place because it'll gouge very easily. Nice little finish. Because the better you finish the foam, once the plastic is molded over it, everything looks nice and clean. Now I'm going to finish this with an orbital sander or dual action sander. And what this does is rotate and oscillate at the same time. You'll see. So don't start the machine and then hit the job. Always put pressure on the job, put it on the job, then start it. We're actually blending this down to 0. Now you're talking. And if you hit into the foam, it's not going to matter as long as you don't go too deep into it. And you can see by color when it's starting to zero out. This is actually called feathering. Very common in auto body. Now that's all pretty much done in there. Let's just get the front. Now remember, once the plastic is molded over this, you're not going to see any of that because the plastic will cover all that stuff. There are really no imperfections, as smooth as can be. Once the plastic is molded over it, you don't see this joint. Now if you notice, I keep checking this to make sure I'm not going too deep in the foam. Just keep putting pressure on it so you see what it's like. And usually when you see something like that, this is going to be a ridge. You're going to feel a ridge, so you want to sand it out. Now, if you look, the trim line is going to be somewhere in here, so in case we have to do this a little bit. So that's 0 now. Gotta be careful because it's very easy to damage this. Now, you've got a molded PPT extra cushion over the navicular, medium malalis. So no matter how much pressure I want to put on this guy to get correction out of this valgus deformity and his brittle diabetic condition, he's going to be well cushioned in this area. And that's how you use the dual action. You also use a DA sander to feather out plastics, thermoplastics. You know the way thermoplastics, you got to sit there on a Ticro wheel and polish. You can never really get a smooth, clean finish like the original. But with a DA sander, it's very easy. Now you can see this is a project we did for a Symes patient. When we formed this prosthetic socket, we had a few extra patches of copolymer that we added to the bottom to fill out and flatten that surface so that now it can be attached to the foot. You could see where the patchwork is. These are both copolymers, but this was a little thicker, so it's a little different shade. Now with the DA sander, it's been rough grinded to get close to the ultimate shape, and the DA sander you can actually polish out the entire seam. See, the seam is just about gone now. I'm going to leave a little bit for just strength. Down in here it's not going to matter because the foam cover will cover it, and here as well the foam cover will cover it. Now once you get to that point, you torch it, and that's called flame polishing. And then we get a torch. Still just 100 grit sandpaper. If you really want to go crazy, you can take that down to 220, get a finer grit on it, so it'll take less flame to polish it. But now the flame polishing, and you can see a couple of lines in it from where it's from the 100 grit paper. Of course, if you use 220, you can get it so fine that you only need a light touch with the torch. I'm going to leave this a little rough in here because this is going to be bonded inside the prosthetic foot, and you don't want a smooth surface for adhesion. There you go. Now the seam is pretty much gone. Of course, this project doesn't matter because it's going to be finished with a foam cover anyway, but in cases where you're going to have a prosthetic socket exposed with a seam, you can very easily finish it with the DA sander, 100 grit paper, and then if you want to really finesse it, bring it down to 220, and after 220, blow it off and flame polish. Dual action sander with 100 grit paper on this to surface this, okay? Very simple, fast. Orbital sanders are really nice for sanding thermoplastic because it doesn't burn the material, and it surfaces it right down to exactly where you want to be so that the plate can be mounted. And we're there.